you always want to tag your opponents. You want to know, are you facing a regular or a fish? And this is crucial. My students, I always advise them when they start a sit and go in a tournament, and this is completely the same in sit and goes, especially when you approach the bubble or the later stage of a sit and go in general. You want to know, are you pushing into fish or into regular? Are you calling against the fish or are you calling against the regular? If you reach, let's say, the later stage of a tournament and you haven't marked any players on your table yet, I don't want to offend you, but then you're an idiot. You really need to do it. That's where you gain an edge. That's where you are ahead of your opponents. That's where you can exploit the fish a lot. Okay, what to consider for pushing? Villain's absolute stack size. So let's say the guy has, in this situation we just had with the pocket sevens, so here, so let's say the big blind has 500k chips, then I'm definitely not jamming the looser than Nash, because here a recreation player, he might come up with the idea, oh, okay, let's gamble. So especially against recreation, you want to at least put damage to their stack. And that means if you have around 10 big blinds, you shouldn't have more than 30 big blinds. Best would be you cover him. If you have 20, 30 big blinds and he has around 8, 9 big blinds, 10, 12, jam any two. Folding 3 to deuce offsuit is literally a crime. And last but not least, again, there are no ICM considerations yet. I will cover ICM in the ICM course and how ICM impacts our ranges, what to consider on final tables, and so on and so forth. All right. So now let's go through some hands where I want to show you what ranges we should open jam with, and also how to apply the 360 analyzers. And yeah, let's jump into it. So the first hand here, ace 10 off, pretty clear all in. You should not min raise. Also, if you have hands like ace king off, ace jack off, ace 10 off, just open jam them. Even though if you have 12 big blinds, it's super profitable. You're not gonna reach a higher EV by min raising. There's one exception: if you have very aggressive opponents sitting behind, you need a very strong read for that. That means a very high 3-bet stat, more than 15% overall, over let's say more than 200 hands. Or you already saw him rejamming super light, and that means any ace, also hands like Jack 10 suited, 10 9 suited. You want to have at least one of this kind of opponents sitting behind in order to open min raise a hand like ace queen off and ace jack off. So he calls and we have ace and we win the pot. But obviously I don't want to teach you here, yeah, open jam ace 10 off, this should be pretty clear. But I want to show you, okay, what hand should we open jam with, and can we make any adjustments based on the opponents? And also, if we don't have any reads on our opponents, what should we do against the average player, against the population tendencies? So I put in the hand, and as you can see, this is the range we can jam first in. So with 12 big blinds, it's not so much, not even any ace. The pocket pairs are very profitable. But let's see if we can make any adjustments based on the calling ranges. So first of all, we're gonna check if the cutoff here with this 23k, he has a big stack. He's a regular though, so I don't think he will call any loser. If he might be a fish, he might be in the gambling mood, called Jack 10 suited and stuff. But the regular, he doesn't really care. He just sees me calling, jamming 12 big blinds, and then he will call according to Nash or close to Nash. So I think this looks fine. Maybe he's folding ace 9 off. For the small blind, I think this also looks reasonable. Maybe folding king 10 suited. And the big blind, sorry, this is the button. Yeah, this is the button's calling range. Yeah, I think this would be a bit tighter. I think he shouldn't, and he also shouldn't call so loose. I think this is reasonable. The small blind is also a bit loose. Also here he was tanking with ace 8 suited. So when you see people tanking with ace 8 suited, you know, okay, he's maybe he's definitely folding ace-8 off and king-10 suited and pocket fours. So he's calling ace-8 suited, definitely folding ace-8 off. When he tanks with ace-8 suited, he's probably also calling, folding ace-7 suited. But in case he calls, I just let it in. And then the big blind, I think this is too loose. I'm jamming 12 big blinds. I think he's calling something like this. And then we have our jamming range here, and you can see you can jam quite loose for our situation here. Even a hand like king 7 suited, it's not hugely profitable, but we only have 12 big blinds. It's decently profitable and we should go for it. And since we're jamming from the hijack, there are only 3 players in front, so the card removal effects are not so significant, not significant at all. So here, even though there might be very little impacts, it's not going to change the EV so much. So our range of jamming should be here: ace-5 off and better, king-10, queen-10, jack-10 off. So everything that is over 0.2 or 0.15. So how does our range change if we have around 10 big blinds? So when you remember, this is our 12 big blind range. We are MP3. Sorry, I did a mistake. So this guy has 4,600 and we have 4,000. So we are MP3. And now you can see, without adjusting the ranges, Nash suggests us already to push a bit looser, even though we have only 2 big blinds left. And if you compare that, you can see it's actually not so much, but it will change more if you adjust the ranges. So let's say, okay, cutoff against our 10 big blind jam, he might fold these hands. Button with his also 12 big blinds, he will for sure not call ace-8 off. So here you always have to adjust. The suggested ranges, they are always a bit too loose. As you can see here, small blind against our 10 big blind jam, he should never call ace-2 suited. So definitely need to adjust those ranges. Maybe something like this, and also big blind calling 27% with any ace. I think this is also quite ambitious here. Yeah, maybe something like this. And then you can see, again, you can jam fairly loose. And now with your 10 big blinds, you should definitely take those 0.14, 0.2, 0.18, like 8-6 suited, 10-7 suited, jack-7 suited. You should jam those hands. And I highly doubt that the average low stakes or average mid stakes player is taking those spots here. So if you have jack-7 suited here, go all in. If you have a hand like 8-6 suited, go all in. But I also created the most important ranges for open jamming, which is 10 big blinds from every single position. So from under the gun +1, under the gun +2, MP, hijack, cutoff, button, and small blind. All right, let's jump into the next hand. King 7 suited. Now this is a very interesting spot here, because especially with this 15 big blinds, I see people min raising and limping a lot. But this is such a huge profitable spot. We should just open jam it. And 15 big blinds, I know we're a little bit deeper. We're risking more of our stack, and you can see the Nash range here. This is very profitable. It's literally printing. If we jam 62%, you see that big blind is supposed to call 40%. King 7 suited, we're not getting a better EV or high EV by limping or min raising. We're gonna play out of position. He might rejam hands on us, which he have folded against an open jam, maybe the weakest off-suited aces, or maybe some connectors or broadways, something like king 9 off or king 8 off. You never know. So you want to take you want to apply the maximum pressure on him and just open jam king 7 suited. And Hands I would also jam would be Jack 7, 10 7, 9 6 suited, 9 7 suited. We are out of position, and those are pretty profitable spots. So 8 5, so everything that is above 0.2. Also, a hand like King Deuce off is a very profitable jam here. So I went for the jam, and he actually made a pretty loose call. Might be due to the fact that he is one of the bigger stacks, so he can easily afford losing an all-in against me without being crippled. So in this very situation, you have 14. I would jam, not 14, 15 big blinds. I would jam around, 50% of my hand. So Nash suggests 62, but what I do is I'm basically limping or min raising the bottom hands, which I know. And this, now I'm already taking or speaking about pushing versus min raising / limping. So I'm taking out all those very, very borderline jams and then put it in my limping or min raising range. So something like this, maybe also like Queen 5, Queen 6 off. So I'm only jamming very profitable jams, and then I mix it with my strong hands. So I'm balanced, he cannot exploit me, and I'm probably min raising or limping, these kind of hands. King Queen suit also plays very well as a limp, and then calling off a jam or limping aces and kings. And then you don't need to be afraid that you have a lot of hands, shit hands in your limping or min raising range, because your range is going to be balanced. You have strong hands and you have weak hands, and the other hands in the middle, they are very profitable all-ins. And you play a very, very good strategy from the small blind, and your opponent, he can do nothing against it. And in these days, you need to be able to at least play very, very good from the small blind and not making any mistakes. This is a range you can print out. You can tag it with my 14 big blind small blind strategy, and then you're good to go. But I'm also gonna add short stack small blind ranges. You also have the open raising range for 20 big blinds anyway. We're going to construct later a 20 big blind button range, and I also will add some small blind range to the course. And if you have certain questions about ranges, you're not sure if you play the correct ranges from a certain position with a certain stack size, write it in your blog on Raise Your Edge. Ask in my blog, hey Ben, can you look over the range? Is it right? Is it correct? And then I will give you feedback. Obviously, there are an infinite amount of scenarios possible. It's just not possible to cover every single situation. But with those ranges I've been giving you in this course, you have already such a huge edge over the field that if you just follow them, you're gonna increase your win rate tremendously. And here's one more spot. I mean, we're not jamming 3 deuce off. I actually don't want to talk about my hand. I saw this hand in game from villain jamming ace 9 off here, and I just wanted to check. Okay, it looks quite loose at first sight, especially with 12 big blinds. So I wanted to check it. Maybe if I have a leak there that I might be too tight, or if it's just pretty marginal in general. So I was really curious about this spot. That's why I marked this hand. And as you can see, ace 9 off is actually a very profitable jam here. So you played it totally fine. But I also want to show you something different with this hand. So let's assume we are cut off and we have around, let's say 20 to 19 big blinds. So I'm going to change the stack size for this guy, Kolovsky 1. So he has around 55k, which is close to 20 big blinds, 19 big blinds. So let's see, I'm going to pause for a second. And here you can see one thing which I see people doing wrong and again and again and again. That's what I meant earlier by people jamming too loose with 15 big blinds and more. There's, I would say, common sense that if you have less than 20 big blinds, you cut off a button, just go in with any ace. But you see, but as you can see, it's pretty close. It's just not worth it to take a plus 0.23 jam with such a healthy stack. So ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5, ace 6 off. When you want to play it, just raise it. Maybe raise it a bigger, play it as a bluff, as a steal, mix it in some traps with aces, kings, and queens, and ace king, and jacks, and tens, and all those kind of hands. but don't open jam it. The only hands that make sense to open jam are pocket pairs. Even ace-2 suited, like with 18 big blinds, I really don't want to take such a marginal jam. And it's quite marginal for my stack size. You can be sure you will find better spots. And when you take those spots with such a healthy stack, even king 10 off, queen jack off, I see people jamming all day long. They have this understanding of, yeah, broadways and aces and low suited aces. They're super profitable with around 20 big blinds from cutoff. And no, don't do it. You will find better spots. It's basically just punting your stack away. Also, hands like king 9, queen 9, jack 9. So your first side, it looks like a very profitable jam, but it's just not. And I mean, in these days, okay, the calling ranges are quite loose, but they just put you on small pocket pairs. They call you off with pocket fives, and let's make it a bit tighter. But small blind is, where's the hand? 1 second. Small blind is quite loose anyway. That makes it actually a little bit better. Let's assume this guy is also more than 50k. The EV drops a bit, because the moment we cover one of the other opponents, it's less likely that we're gonna bust if we get caught. But if all of the stacks sitting behind are covering us, have more than 55k, it gets even worse jamming those low offsuited aces or king 9 suited and even the low suited aces. So here it's actually still a good situation for us, because if the small blind calls and we lose, we still have 10 big blinds left. Even against the big blind, okay, then we're gonna have 1 big blind left. But so here, be very, very careful, especially when the stacks are bigger as your stack, than your stack, sorry. So let's take a look at the big blind's calling range. Okay, it's also gonna be a bit tighter. So something like this. And then you can see it's still not worth it. It's too marginal for your stack. This is an EV I would take if I have 10 to 15 big blinds, but not if I have close to 20 big blinds. Ace-2 suited becomes quite profitable now, but that's pretty much the low pocket pairs, but that's pretty much it. Still the broadways, it's not high enough for an 18 big blind open jam. Right, so now I changed the situation a bit. I gave small blind and big blind bigger stacks. And so you can see here, small blind has 70k. This column is the stack size. Big blind also has around 70k, and button has 70k anyway. So all of these three stacks are covering us. And now you can see how poor the EV of those low off suited aces. Even ace-7 off, ace-2's off to ace-7 off, it's just not worth it. Even the broadways, queen jack off, king 10 off, queen 10 off, jack 10 off, it's not worth it to jam. Especially people in these days, they're not rejamming as loose as they should, so rather open min raise those hands. Yes, the off-suited aces, they gonna play pretty poor in position, or no, the playability is pretty poor, but you're still in position. So very often your opponent, especially when he flats from the big blind, is gonna miss the flop. You're gonna take down the pot on the flop very frequently, but just betting 1/3 or 40% pot size. You don't need to invest a lot. So, and the position advantage, you don't need to be afraid to play post flop. All right, now I made a different analysis. It's a little bit more detailed. What I did here is basically taking into account that our opponent might flat call us when we min raise. So here I analyzed the situation, us open raising, and I want to check the EVs. Obviously for this tool, it's a bit too much to consider everything in post flop action in order to determine a very accurate EV for min raising. So what Hold'em Resource Calculator does is when we open raise a certain hand and we are facing a call, it estimates what is our equity against this range. And so it's a very rough estimation, but it's better than nothing. It doesn't consider any realization factors, because in position we have a way higher equity realization. So actually the V's of min raising certain hands is way higher than you can see here. So let's take a look, for example, the low of suited aces. I made some assumptions. Button is 3-betting this range, I mean 3-bet all in. Small blind is going all in with this range, and big blind is going all in with this range and is flat calling. He is flat calling this range. This is the range he's flat calling, and small blind and button, they just play a shove or fold modus in order to simplify this analysis a bit. And what is pretty surprising here, you can see that the V of min raising those low offsuited aces is actually higher than jamming. So here you can see this is the V for jamming, this is the V for min raising. And it doesn't even consider that we are in position. So actually the V is higher. And it's actually not surprising, because King 9, Queen 9, Jack 9 suited, the V of min raising is a bit lower. Because when we get called, we have way better equity with King 9 suited compared to low suited aces. So here the V is not so high, yet it is for a min raise. We are only risking it 2 big blinds in order to realize such an EV. This is way better than open jamming and not being really sure how our opponent's calling ranges look like. So especially such a strong hand in position that plays so good, the V of min raising is way higher. That's why I would always advise to min raise those hands. Also hands like King 10 off. You see here the min raise is even higher with a hand like King 9 suited. Here you can see Holy Marisa calculator over values the blocker effects a bit, because with King 10 off we block more of our opponent's rejam range. So also hands like Ace 10 off, Queen 10 off, or Queen 10 suited, Jack 10 suited. With King 9 suited, we're not blocking the 10x rejamming hands. So that's why King 10 off has a little bit higher EV of min raising, even though King 9 suited has a way better playability post-flop. So actually the V of King 9 suited should be way higher. I now know it's going to be a little bit complicated, but you really need to understand it. So if you want to go for the jam with King 9, Queen 9 suited, I really don't mind it. But please avoid doing it with King 10 off, Queen 10 off, Jack 10 off, or with hands like Ace, the low offsuited aces. Then you're already good to go. Yet, since we're in position, we have a good hand, and in these days people are not rejamming actually so loose. I mean, the rejamming ranges I've been giving them are already quite more on the looser side. So actually the V of min raising in reality is probably a bit higher. So, but don't follow this range here in order to in terms of open raising, because as you can see here, also King 6 off seems to be a decently profitable open raise, but because it only considers the blocker effects and also only the raw equity. So if we get called by big blind, King 6 off is obviously performing pretty good against, take a look, big blind's calling range here, because we are ahead against most of his hands with King high, but it has a very, very poor playability. So here, don't take that for granted. Holy Marisa's calculators in this matter very limited. So here we just use this function in order to make an approximation. So all in all, what you should keep in mind is avoid jamming low offsuited aces from hijack and cutoff with more than 15 big blinds, as well as offsuited broadways, except King Queen and King Jack off. And then you're already doing a really, really good job.